Hi, Simon.
Hey, Lisa.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm actually really excited for today's topic. But I'm also a little nervous because as we were preparing for the show today, I was like, oh, wait a minute. We have a website. It's mostlymarketing.com, but
yes,
we don't have a privacy policy. We don't have terms and conditions.
I know. We learned something.
Yeah. So I think hopefully, any of you out there that have websites and you just, I can just whip this up and set it up in Squarespace or WordPress or whatever.
I wish there was an integration with some technologies about that. Feels like it should be. Anyway.
Product idea. Anyway.
So it is a product idea. Yeah. So today we talked to Linsey Krolik, who I worked with at Bill. She was a more seasoned attorney and one of the best attorneys that I've ever worked with. And I've told her this many times, and I'm not lying. And I'm sorry to some of the other attorneys that I've worked with. There is another exception. Lindsay's successor I worked with, a woman named Jen. Shout out to Jen if you're listening, was also a very good partner. And I think the reason why there's often like, I got to deal with legal, there's the responsibility of an attorney within a corporation is to kind of protect the organization. So they tend to be very conservative, where Linsey is different. And I'm going to give a little bit more about her background, is that she thinks about it's a balance between the business goals and not obstructing the business. So it's like as a marketer, you're like, I'm trying to make us money or I'm trying to get more customers. And yet, some attorneys are like, well, you can't say that. And it becomes just like, it's not helpful. And so Linsey was actually just this really good partner for me. And I learned a lot from her.
And we just learned a lot. I think this show is going to be really insightful for people on exactly on those things.
Totally. There's so much to know.
So you met her at Bill?
I did. Yes. So another thing about her is that, and I don't know if I told you this, she left Bill because she was doing she was an adjunct professor for Santa Clara University. So now she's basically there full time. But the other thing she was doing was she left to write a novel. And so I asked her about that. I was like, is fiction? And I said, did you ever publish it? She's like, it's in my drawer. I go back to it periodically. We didn't even touch on that in our conversation with her. But so she's led, in-house counsel. She's done some work with some startups.
Right.
She focused on product and privacy. And we also learned that she has a marketing background. So you two worked together at Palm, and apparently she was in the marketing department.
And she got her JD. It's a JD MBA, right?
Yes. But the other thing that she has is a clinic where she that's separate from teaching, is that she runs this clinic for law students to be able to take in cases, like reviewing a privacy policy. I don't know how big their scope is, but certainly helping with contracts. I think it's more that they're not going to trial for you. I don't think.
Oh no, absolutely. I don't
right.
think.
Because they're students. They're not attorneys yet.
They're not fast. And she'll touch on that, right?
That's true too. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Linsey. Linsey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fun topic today, I think. And we discovered that Linsey has a marketing background. And that's probably why the two of you connected, which also makes her a great guest for us. So
totally.
One of the topics that we want to talk about, everything today is around legal and ethical standards and marketing practices and do's and don'ts. And there's a lot for people to try to comprehend when, even for us, right? I mean, maybe a high level, what's going on, in data privacy, in the last, I guess it's been 5-10 years, but
data privacy is such a huge topic. So we will not talk about it all today, I'm sure.
Okay, good.
But it's interesting how ad tech and marketing tech has basically become a regulated industry because of privacy.
Right.
So it's not just about following CAN-SPAM rules for email marketing, which we could talk about as well. Commercial emails, marketing.
Got it.
Stands for Controlling the Assault of Non-Solicited Pornography and Marketing Act.
Yes.
And marketing. We get thrown in there with pornography.
Pornography,
Fabulous.
marketing.
Fabulous.
Holy cow.
That's why we call
Wow.
it spam. And
That's why we don't. Yeah. Okay.
I
That's
think we
fair.
just end the show because I just learned something. I thought it was the Canadians that we
I thought
had
it
to
was
worry
Canadian too. I did too. Oh, that's terrible.
Sorry, all you
Okay.
Canadians that
All right.
listen.
So we got the Can Spam Act. There's California has its own thing.
So let me just say, Can Spam is about email marketing. It's not really a privacy law. It's sort of, it is really kind of a communications law.
Got
Okay.
it.
But privacy is a whole other animal.
Mm.
And so at a high level, what's going on? You ask, what's going on with privacy? That privacy is a patchwork of a ton of different laws. In the US, we don't have federal privacy legislation. We don't have a federal privacy law. And so, but we do have something called the FTC Act Section 5, which prohibits unfair and deceptive acts and practices. And this has been used to basically fill the gap for all kinds of privacy violations, including in marketing. And then we have all kinds of specific privacy laws, like we have a ton of state privacy laws that have been popping up.
Right.
California started, you were asking about California. So yes, California led the way in 2020 to adopt the CCPA, which I know this acronym, California Consumer Privacy Act.
Okay. That's a good one.
That is something that is a sea change for privacy in the US, because now we have 19 states who have copied that.
Okay.
But they're all slightly different.
Of course.
Of course. And a lot of what it has to do with is giving consumers notice about what data is being collected and giving them options. You mentioned like opting out of cookies, right? Now we have the ability to opt out of what's called sale and sharing, which is basically, think about that as behavioral advertising or targeting.
Right.
Which is bad for us in a way.
Which is why ad tech is regulated now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like for marketers. And that's the other thing too, is like, I feel like this is kind of tangentially related to data collection and storing, which I think the CCPA is a little bit more specific about. And just as an aside, because not everybody lives in California here, but it's like how you protect. And then if somebody says, I don't want you to have my data anymore, you have to have policies in place of this is how we get rid of it and destroy it and, whatever. That's as much as I know. But I know that you have to do that.
I think you actually benefit from behavioral targeting.
100%.
Because you get, I think you get ads that actually...
They're relevant to you.
Exactly. And have context.
I guess.
This is the argument. This is the argument, right? Is that if we want free services,
exactly,
right? Then
this is the trade-off.
We're gonna have ads. We're gonna have ads regardless, right?
Yep.
So do you want them to be relevant to you or do you not? But then there's this fine line where, because we have this
creepy,
that it's creepy and our phones are listening to us and our cars are listening to us and everything is watching us. And that starts to feel, that's where we get into like traditional privacy, which goes back to like 1890.
Before digital.
Yes, which privacy in the US started with cameras that just being able to take a candid photo was considered.
So wait,
really,
did you say 1890 or
1890?
1890 is when privacy laws started appearing?
That is when there's this seminal law review article called The Right to be Let Alone that was written by Warren and Brandeis, who then became Supreme Court justices. And they were upset that one of them was getting married. I can't actually remember which one of them. They were getting married to a kind of like a debutante socialite, and there were all this paparazzi and the new fandangled camera that you could you didn't have to pose for a picture. You could just take a picture.
Yeah.
It was very intrusive. And so that's kind of what started this conversation in the US about privacy. Different in Europe. Like, we could talk about Europe. Europe started with Nazi Germany. And, that is a different kind of harm entirely.
But
yeah.
So they started with their privacy policies came out of Nazi Germany post-war?
Post-war.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So monitoring of people or whatever.
Oh,
interesting.
I get it. Whoa. Okay.
So you didn't know we were going to do history here, but
no, but this is fascinating. Like,
yeah.
If you, I know if you're commercial and you take photos and someone's in that shot, you've got to get a model release or blur out their face. You see that in TV shows and things like that. But if you're just you and me on the street, everyone now taking photos, right, with their phone, like, there's no way. People just accept the fact that there's a possibility that I'm going to be filmed.
Yeah, it's very different, right?
Is that just a tolerance thing? Like, we've just grown to accept it, even though it's not. So it sounds like that the laws are still in place then, I would imagine, right?
So there's in California, again, we have really strong what's called right of publicity laws.
Okay.
Because we have Hollywood.
Sure.
Right. And so when you're talking about someone famous, then you're taking a picture to then sell it, to a tabloid or whatever, right? Then that's commercial use.
Interesting.
And that crosses a little bit of a different line. But even for you and me in California, we have pretty strong right of publicity laws. So startups and small businesses who are doing like testimonials on websites and taking a video or taking a picture and having a quote, and all of this is you need what's called a media release, and it can be really simple.
Sure.
But you do need permission to do that.
So the media release is sort of an extension of a model release okay. I know Lisa when she was on the National Enquirer and the paparazzi photos of her, and
we're on the same page. No, well, hold on. So privacy. There's something. So Simon and I have a website associated with it's mostly marketing. We're like, we don't have any we're not under. We're in California, but we don't collect any information. We don't have revenue that is of note, and so we don't need a privacy policy. But that's not true, is it? We probably need one, don't we?
Technically, you need one, and the reason. I'm so glad you brought this up, because we've all gotten in our email inboxes this update about this new California privacy law, CCPA. Privacy policies are being updated, and so people are wondering, who have businesses, do I need to comply with this new California Consumer Privacy Act and have this privacy policy and allow opt-outs from targeted marketing and all the other things that actually come along with that law? And there is what's called a threshold requirement. So it's about the amount of data that you collect. Do you sell data? And how much revenue do you make? And so most startups and small businesses, most are not going to meet the $25 million.
That's what I thought it was.
It's $25 million?
That's what I thought.
I mean,
right.
I hope you do,
I hope we do too.
And
wow.
If you do,
so far,
then, we can talk
you
again.
can come to Hawaii with us. So.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, I'll do that. I like Mai Tais.
We'll have all our guests come.
Yes,
we'll have a party.
If we make 25 million, if we get 1,000 subscribers, I'll do something. So anyway,
okay, you heard it here. But there's this other law called CalOPPA. I know all these acronyms. And
what's that one?
I don't even know.
California Online Privacy Protection Act. That's probably not exactly right, but we call it
CalOPPA.
That's right.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to put in our in the description and also on our website with resources. So I think there's FTC data privacy guidance that you talked about. maybe I can refer to the CCPA, Can Spam Act, all these fun things. If people want to read it, they can. Well, probably you could put, I mean, I don't know if this is a good idea, but you could probably put it into AI to say, can you summarize this for me? Just as a like cursory understanding. I mean, I don't know. I mean, okay.
Or even, Google Notebook LM will create, probably shouldn't say this, but they can create a podcast.
I know.
But maybe I shouldn't say that because
No. I know that it can.
5 million, and we don't want to do that. So
maybe it'll supplement it. It'll complement it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But so CalOPPA requires every website operator in California to have a privacy policy,
regardless of
no thresholds, regardless of how big you are. If you're collecting data, personal information that can identify people.
We can't. So we are using Google Analytics. So we're tracking anonymously. We're not doing advertising. So we're not.
We do have a form where people provide an email and their name and questions.
That's true.
So
even that will kick you in.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So Google Analytics, if you're anonymizing, probably not. But if we turned around and used it for target marketing, right?
That's right.
Then you would. Okay. Well, so then it sounds like it's a good idea to do it.
It is. And you can start off very simple. There are, so I teach a law clinic at Santa Clara that provides.
So they could do it for us?
They could do it for you.
Okay.
We write a lot of privacy policies. We do contracts, and we write terms of service, and we do business formation and all kinds of other stuff.
And this is sort of volunteer to give people, the students, a practical.
That's right.
Or is it okay? So it's free of charge.
Free of charge.
Okay. You did point me to there was a form when I wanted to ask you about something. I can't even remember what that was, but I don't remember, but you basically like, oh, here's a form if you want to reach out to our clinic. So I feel like that's what I'll gotta go look back at that.
So we'll
add that to the show, by the way, for folks.
Do you want?
Oh yeah,
I bet you have enough work.
Yeah, we're always looking for new clients. We run this clinic fall, spring, summer. We run it year round. It does follow a semester long.
Right.
And so if you want a privacy policy tomorrow, we're not your person.
Right.
So, but it's free. So, and you're doing it for the good of students learning. And
well, heck yeah.
Not only a fantastic privacy policy, but you will get a memo that explains it and talks about some of the privacy principles and things that you might want to think about for your business as it grows.
That's really cool. Do you only do California, or would you?
We do. I'm only licensed to practice in California, so we typically just do California. But we write privacy policies, sort of on a U.S. basis. So we would not look at, like, if you are in Washington State, for instance, and have a mobile health app. There is a specific Washington health privacy law that we would say. We're gonna tell you a little bit about it, but you should go get specific legal advice.
Yeah.
And are you familiar?
But we'll still give you a starter privacy.
Sure.
Right. And
That's
are
good.
there other colleges? Have you heard of other colleges other law schools doing similar?
Yes.
Okay.
There's I'm going to a conference in a few weeks that is all transactional law clinic professors, and we all get together and nerd out because there's many of us actually. So you could look at your local law school or resources in your area to do that. The other thing that I'll say, which is there are I would not recommend writing your privacy policy by asking ChatGPT.
Why is that?
Well, we're seeing a lot of that come into the clinic right now. Actually, we have clients who are coming in saying, I have this starter privacy policy. Could you review it? And it's very obvious to us that, ChatGPT or whatever Gen AI you're using, there's a certain style and you can tell right away. And I think as we were talking, before the show, Lisa, like it is very important that your privacy policy is particular to your business and
not generic.
The whole point of this, like just to make it really clear, is to tell people what you're doing with data and then to do what you say. So if you're getting something off the shelf that looks, this looks standard, it might fulfill your needs, but you're probably collecting some information that isn't reflected in there, or you're using it for a different purpose. And you just, honestly, you're probably, it's just not going to be accurate.
Got it.
Well, and you just made me think, I'd mentioned that for my consulting, I hired an attorney to write my privacy policy, but this was probably 6 years ago. And it just occurred to me that, so how often should I revisit this? I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So typically every year, once a year.
Oops.
Or if you have a significant change in your business, right? You expand into this new segment and you're collecting a lot more information, or you're using it now. Like if you decide we're going to do targeted advertising or whatever, that is, that is significantly different. You should take a look at it.
Well, I'm definitely going to be leveraging your clinic.
I will share one other resource, which there are some resources out there. Termly is one, and I'm not associated or like paid by that at all.
Disclosure.
Just an example of, I know somebody who used to work there, and they provide free online. They have like a free online terms builder. So for terms of service and privacy.
So why don't
good.
Maybe take a few minutes or a couple, whatever. And what's the difference? Terms of service, terms and condition, privacy. A lot of it seems very lawyery, but
I'm so glad you asked that. I assume, doesn't everybody know? No, of course they don't. Okay, so
and do we need both? Also,
I think I have both.
I'll let you talk now.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. So terms of service can also be known as user agreement, terms of use, terms and conditions, many different names. That is a contract. And it's a very one-sided.
I have both.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. So a terms of service, I'm just going to use that terminology. A terms of service is not required by law, but what it does is it helps limit the website's liability for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So like the easiest example is if you allow users to upload content that might be infringing on somebody else's copyright, or, harmful, or hate speech, right?
Right.
You want to have the ability to take that down and to not be this is a function. This is a way to limit your liability for that type of harmful activity on the website. And again, it's very particular to your website, and every website is different.
Right.
But a privacy policy it's actually not a contract. It is
You're like, this is it.
If
you don't like it, don't use it. Yeah.
It's a statement. And it can be interpreted as a promise.
Okay.
This is what we are doing to safeguard your data.
Yep. I love it. Let's actually talk about a little bit more specifics. So we touched on email for a second there, and maybe we can get into a little bit more compliance.
And maybe one of the things you mentioned, you're going to nerd out with a bunch of transactional lawyers, and it made me think about email coming from e-commerce and things like that, where there's marketing email and transactional email. So I don't know if it's the same.
Transactional.
Yeah, I'm
all thinking about transactions.
Yeah.
That's true too. Oh, you know what? As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with a company that I'm consulting with, they were like, can't we send, such and such within the transactional email? And I was like, no. And I don't even know if this is right, but I feel like there's something like 10% of you can have like 10% of the email to be marketing or something.
So let's,
all right,
Linsey,
let's explain the difference. Take it away.
Structure on email, some thoughts.
Yeah. So this all comes from CAN-SPAM. We talked about that earlier. And found out what that acronym stands for.
I really thought it was a can of spam.
I thought it was Canada specific. I'm so embarrassed that all this time I thought it was related to Canada.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, and I knew it had to, like, you can't spam people is the way that I kind of interpreted it. But I was like, we, and I always felt like for years, any kind of organization I've been part of, we all follow things. And then the email platforms usually have some level of things built in. So you kind of, like you said, it's a regulated industry. Like there's things in place, I kind of feel like. Loosely. Mostly.
Like some of the technical things are kind of easily taken care of by your email marketing vendor.
Yeah.
For instance, like your address has to be on there and they're
exactly.
So, but the good news is that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has some really good guidance for small businesses around how to comply with CAN-SPAM. And we can share that link probably too.
Yep.
And the main thing is that commercial emails are regulated under CAN-SPAM. Think of commercial emails like marketing emails, right?
Right.
If it's clear that you're selling something or a promotion or something, most things are going to be falling into that commercial email.
Well, and just to clarify, before you move on though, just to clarify, commercial versus like I'm sending you an email. Hey, how's it going, Linsey? Like that is what personal email versus commercial. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So coming from a business is commercial.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good point. So transactional is things like a receipt, an account statement, an update to we're updating our privacy policy.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Transactional email, service update, recall, right? Think about things that are you need to send to fulfill whatever you're selling to the customer. It's not marketing, right? It's
right. Yep.
It's like you already bought this, and here's your receipt.
Here's what you need.
Yeah, here's what you need. So there is this, it used to be called the 80-20 rule. So you just mentioned 10%. I think it's trending more towards 10%.
Okay.
And who's making it trend? You mean marketers are being cautious? Because I can't imagine us being cautious.
I don't think I mean, the FTC, the regulators.
Oh, regulators, the more the...
Yeah. But the idea is that if the primary message is transactional, so an example, you bought something and I'm sending you a receipt for it, and I also want to include the ability to upgrade, and sign up for a subscription. If I do that at the bottom of the email after the receipt, you have the receipt, and then at the bottom of the email, it says, create an account and subscribe and save, and it's not that upgrade is not mentioned in the subject line, right? It's the primary purpose remains. This is a receipt,
right?
This is transactional. Then you can include a small amount, think 20%, 10 to 20% of marketing in that email. And that's
okay.
Usually considered okay. This is very subjective.
Does it?
Sure.
Yeah. In your experience, does it matter if it's copy versus, say, a little creative banner or, because I feel like something visual, if the receipt is just like itemized, blah.
Yes.
And maybe you have a corporate logo, but then at the bottom, you actually have a banner that's like, woo woo,
yeah, but if you measure it 20%,
like literally the size of the email, is that kind of how it is? Okay.
It's like,
how it is. That's not how it is. It's exactly what you're talking about, Simon, which is if the attention grabs away from that, it kind of cuts against your argument that primary purpose.
You're like, clearly,
So
right. We snuck this in. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know.
I've tended to stay away from that, to be honest. Like I mentioned this conversation that I had with a product manager. He was like, can't we put it? I was like a little thing. Like, I just feel like it can become a slippery slope. And it's like, don't piss off your customers. And I think that's what you've talked about, brand. And maybe we got to talk about that too. Just like a brand promise. I know there's a lot of things to cover. That's why we go all over the place and we have tangents. But
I actually pause for just a second.
Sure.
You mentioned, it's a slippery slope, but there's a consequence. It's not just you said pissing off your customers, making them annoyed or whatever. But there are legal, like there's what's the right word? Restitution, or there's another word, right? Fines, but you have to make good on what you did wrong, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, can spam is actually pretty hefty fines. I think the number gets updated every year based on inflation. So, but I think it's up to about $50,000 per email if you get this wrong and send it to a lot of customers and you piss them off. You're looking at a huge fine.
So if your mailing list is 1,000 people and you screw up and you get fined, it's 50,000 or something times 1,000, even though it's the same email.
That's right. Which is why, it's pretty.
Close your mouth, Lisa.
We pay attention to, right? Like, yeah.
Okay. I don't want to ever send an email.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's crazy.
I will say though, that there are ways to do this. So because I am not the type of lawyer that just says like, nope.
No, I know. That's why I love you.
Right. So, because you have to realize like there are, we're talking about two extremes, like don't ever send a commercial email again, or like just blatantly violate,
Sure.
Pay a lot of fine. So
I hope lawyers always help marketers manage risk and understand risk and not be yes or no. So
that's right.
Well, so you have to, I hope you're teaching your students this way, because that's why I loved working with you, is because other attorneys were so black and white, and they're working within an organization. So they're very conservative. They have the company's best interest in mind. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But it's also like, don't be obstructing the business that I can't help grow it because you're so, strict about everything. So that's where, again,
where do you find,
it's a nuance. Yeah.
Again, thinking about how you maybe teach your students, but at the same time, you're teaching people on this show, what are some of those things where you can play around with it a little bit? Or
so this is a mindset of problem solving and of driving the business. So I think that's what we're actually trying to do as lawyers. Our job is to enable the business.
Right.
It's not to stop the business. We can have zero risk and zero business. That's how that equation works. So,
yes. Thank you.
So some practical things like taking this example, how do we do this email? How do we include some marketing in a transactional email? So we look at the nuances of, how big is that marketing message? How splashy is it? What does it say? Is it really attention grabbing? Also, can you test that with a small subset of users? See if you piss them off. If you piss them off, then we went too far. We got complaint. We got unsubscribes. We don't want to be reported to the FTC. We're gonna but if all goes well and it's doing the marketing, it's meeting the marketing goals that you had, and you're not getting complaints and you're not getting unsubscribes, then maybe you can ramp up the number of users who then receive that email. So it's a little bit of testing, just like you would with any other sort of like product release. You can do this in marketing as well.
So
Testing
what are
and setting goals. I love it.
Well, yeah, 100%. And then there are, I mentioned like an email platform might have a lot of things in place already. As a matter of fact, a lot of email platforms are starting to try to encourage SMS, so text messaging, and that's a whole other thing. But they're often the same platform usually helps facilitate that. And one thing I was trying to help a client with text messaging, and it's like all of the things you have to go through to be able to be compliant for that. It's almost even more so than email. So some of the things I think I've observed. So what are the, like, you have to be able to opt out. Like, what are some of the things that you see for requirements for email? Maybe that people have to think about that isn't part of the platform, even if there's anything else it's not already like, because it makes you like, it puts in a footer with your address, it puts in the unsubscribe, it puts in pointing to your privacy policy. That's another one that it puts in.
One of the big things is the ability to customize the opt-out. So you do have to have an unsubscribe link in an email, one click away, right?
Yep.
That's really important. Don't make it hard for the user to unsubscribe. And
white type on a white background.
Yeah, exactly. Or like I'm making them log in to their account. Right.
Interesting.
That's another step that then you're like, oh, I don't remember my password. I don't know. You know, it's help. I understand why you want to use your customer management and preference platform, but for an email unsubscribe,
right,
you need to just
gotta make it easy.
So you could
give them some options.
Maybe. Yeah, like frequency or also survey.
Only
right?
tell me about,
why are you unsubscribing?
Exactly.
Right. You can do that as long as that's in the first click, right?
Yeah. And maybe you'll get some people who are like, yeah, I just don't want emails every day, but I do not want to forget about this company because I want to remember for next,
Mother's Day.
Or only tell me when there's promotions. I don't want to hear about anything else. Yeah. Or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I do. Can I say something about text
of
messaging
course.
though? Because that and SMS, that is, there's another acronym coming. I'm sorry. TCPA, telephone.
Oh, you know what? Okay. There's another thing I gotta consult with your team on.
Yeah. TCPA.
Okay.
So text messaging is a little different than email marketing because not only do you have to allow people to opt out, but you have to get their specific opt-in sent, unchecked checkbox thing. Unchecked checkbox.
Yeah, they have to deliberately, what is that called? When it's like they have to proactively check on it as instead of passive. Is there a term for that?
It's called affirmative user action. Like,
okay.
Just some
manifest. Yeah, they have to do it.
There's all kinds of legal lingo here that we could use, but they really need to, separately from anything else they're doing, check the box that says, please, yes, I'd like to opt in to receive text messaging. And most people will, but then you need to allow them to opt out, which usually is, we're all used to just texting stop, which is, and then both email marketing and text messaging marketing, you need to honor the opt-outs. Right? Like it's not enough to just build it and it looks good, but then you actually keep sending.
How do these organizations, like I get texts from everybody in the White House and the U.S. Capitol. It's like, and I say, delete and report spam, or I'm afraid to say stop because as a consumer, I'm thinking, oh, they'll know I'm alive. True.
Yeah. No. So unfortunately, there's a political exception. And so, yes, I know. Isn't it, it's, I
thought it was like whack-a-mole because
it's just unsubscribe. My personal advice is unsubscribe, just say stop and just know they're going to keep coming and you just got to just keep, unsubscribing if you don't want to see them.
I don't even know how I got on the list.
Because you can buy lists.
Yeah. Because you look like
this is
listen to you. How did they get my number? Like, you've never heard of people buying email lists? And it's funny, we had a whole episode about email, and Simon had asked about that. They said, what about buying lists? People do that. And I'm like, they do and they can, but as a marketing consultant, I never advise people to do that. I just feel like the consumer never asked for this explicitly.
Right.
So it's like, I think it's different if you were to get added to whoever that third party is. If you're like, can have a message in there, or sometimes they'll do, you can pay for like a dedicated email that comes from them. That's like a different thing instead of buying the list.
Right.
So that I feel like is a little bit of a different situation.
But this is what happens when you don't fill out those privacy policy letters that come in the mail, because they say they're third parties. They'll share it with, other vendors, that partners that they have, right? So Toyota shares it with the florists and, the whoever. So I don't know. I get emails from all kinds of random people.
Yeah. And this is a really big, I think, philosophical debate that we have in the privacy world around should the user, should the consumer have to do all this, right? Or should companies have some sort of duty of loyalty to kind of, minimize the amount of stuff we're all sort of subjected to. But there's all these trade-offs, right? Because business, and we do want to enable businesses to grow, and marketing is a vital part of that.
So we've been talking a long time already, and I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, but I think what I would love to do, if you still can, is I still want to touch on a few more things. We might end up breaking it up into 2 episodes because I think it's very meaty. And it's like, so we talked about email. I want to touch on advertising a little bit, and then maybe we can just sort of round out any kind of final broader thoughts. But again, thinking about a small business in the context of marketing, I feel like advertising is appropriate. There's all sorts of other things, like if people want to think about copyright and all that stuff, that maybe we leave that aside and maybe we have it a topic for another time. But if we could just maybe focus on advertising, and you've alluded to that, where we're saying about our website, we're like, well, we're not advertising, we're not retargeting, but still there's people that they have to think about things, even though say Google and Meta make it very easy to start advertising. There's still things that people have to think about. So maybe we can kind of touch on that a little bit. Maybe it's not just I guess there's a number of things. Wherever you want to start with this, because there's the marketing advertising message, if you will, and then there's the kind of legal compliance data collection side of things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that you might see that's very easy to start doing as a small business is to enable cookies. And these are not cookies like chocolate chip delicious cookies. The cookies, basically, the original function was to say, like, you came from this website, this web page, and you put a red sweater in your shopping cart, and now you're at your shopping cart, and we know that we still have the red sweater. Oh, you want to continue shopping and add the blue sweater. Got it, right? It just enabled the website to work. But cookies over time have become a way to track people's activities across the internet and to serve targeted advertising to them. So we know you bought that red sweater on this website. We have a kind of similar blue sweater on this website. Do you like it? Here it is, right?
Right. Or people who buy red sweaters always buy blue pants.
Yeah, true.
Or blue jeans.
That's the way it works. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. And I actually have, point my finger, I have a patent on passing cookies from insecure to secure websites for e-commerce.
Yeah. There you
go.
Thank
you. My co-partner, Steve Wiesner, and I did that way back in the day in Sony. So I don't own it. That would be a fun patent to own, but
but you're the inventor, which is awesome. Yes. So, but now we have all these other kinds of tracking technologies as well. So there's things like pixels and software development kits. it just has become enormously easy to track people across their website activity, to segment them and to enable this marketing.
And obviously we're doing it to grow the business, right?
That's right. That's right. It's very effective.
Exactly.
It
is effective.
And I think everyone has their own sensitivity.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, it was, I love Pottery Barn. Okay. But like, if I go and look at furniture on the Pottery Barn website, and then I'm thinking about it, it's a big purchase, and I didn't purchase it, but then I get an email when I wasn't signed in. I didn't put it in my cart. I get multiple emails saying, "We noticed do you want to buy this?" And I'm like, give me a second. Like,
I know, exactly.
Might, but now you're kind of pissing me off.
You're a little pushy. Yeah. I want to date you first.
Right. It's just like too much. And that line, again, it's different for every person. Some people might be like, that is so convenient. I want you to remember my browsing history so that I don't forget. And others are like, and so I think we're constantly trying to sort of figure out where that balance is and not surprise our users, our prospects, our customers. I think we always have to just keep customer trust at the forefront. And
right.
If there's no acronym you remember, if there's no practical thing you remember from this episode, just think about your customers and your prospects and how you want to treat them.
Yeah, or you as a consumer, like put yourself in their shoes.
Say, do unto others the marketing that you like being marketed to, right? Or something like that.
Yes.
Is it easy for you to sum up the marketing messages? Like Simon, you mentioned the oh no, this was before we started recording. You talked about do you want to talk about that example of Palm, the ad that you had?
Sure. And Linsey was at Palm. We think we overlap. We're not 100% sure, but that was a long, long time ago when dinosaurs still roamed the world.
History.
Yeah.
And you were 12.
But when I was at Palm, there was an ad that we did for a wireless device called the Palm 7 that had a radio built in that could do, simple data communications. Like it was almost predated cellular. And we would promote it with a print ad of a guy rope mountain or rock climbing, just hanging from the top basically of the print ad, right, off of a cliff out in the middle of Moab or somewhere like that. But the tagline said anywhere, anytime that you could use the device. Essentially, we thought was puffery and a bit like always on, always accessible. Well, we got busted by the FTC for that because it's true.
You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Like at the time, maybe that did seem really like, of course you can't have wireless access anytime, anywhere. Like, of course that's puffery. Like it was a little, there's a defensible stance there.
I think they gave us a little bit of grace. I don't remember what the ultimate penalty was, but one of the things that we had to do as an organization is everybody who had anything to do with marketing or advertising or commerce or whatever had to go through this whole 2-day FTC training thing that was but you start to, I remember it, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, it's you know what, that's right. That would do the right thing for the customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
all right.
And puffery is like the classic example that I think of puffery is from the movie Elf. Where, it's like, congratulations, world's best coffee. Oh my, you did it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Right. And so we know that is, of course, that's not world's best coffee. Right.
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 Puffery. You can't prove it. So think about things that fall in puffery camp as you're never going to be able to, the magic word, legal word is substantiate it. You're not going to be able to prove it. It's not objective and it's kind of ridiculous. And we all know it's not true. But for things that you can prove, that it's a marketing claim. Now, like Theranos, If your
Right.
Holmes is in jail because of marketing substantiation leading to investor fraud. But, you know, for that company, there was a marketing claim that was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like 1 drop of blood.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right?
I think like that's the picture too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there was no that needed to be substantiated,
Sure.
Right.
proved in studies, and was not. So, you know, there's what it's very subjective, you know,
Okay.
and so, but the more that you can measure it, you know, and think, is this a reasonable measure, right?
Sure.
Here's a maybe practical tip. Watch for words in your marketing copy that end with EST, fastest, best,
Yeah.
right? Those are 2 examples that came up, but any
Coolest.
The superlative of some sort. Yeah.
Right? Anything that is kind of it seems like, you know, kind of an extreme stance, you might want to think about, well, not that you need substantiate, just think about like, not the right
Just
word.
think about it.
Do I need to, you know, think about proving that? Would I need to do a survey? Would I need to say, would I need to point to this award and for awards, like what year? Like 2000.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
cut it, but you know,
Yeah.
2022. Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
You made me think of a couple things. In Las Vegas, there's all these world's best, and it's like, says who, you know, like that's everywhere. Yes. And then there's a sandwich place, Ike's Sandwiches, and it says world's best sandwich, but then it says according to my mom. So I like that. Like they've substantiated it.
Yeah.
Well, no, what is that when you put the little footnote?
Qualified
it. Yeah.
Disclaimed.
Yeah. I like it.
That's like the teriyaki place that says eat our teriyaki and lose 50 pounds. And then if you read the fine print, it says, and cut your right leg off. It's like
there's fun and cute ways to do
exactly.
That. Very memorable.
Exactly.
Well, that's clearly puffery.
No, there's a saw that
I
right
was going to say, do they have one nearby? Oh God, that's terrible.
One last tip on this is it's really common to think about or have challenges in this area with, is this puffery or not, when you're doing comparative ads, when you're saying, you know, we're better than this, than our, they watch those because you just have additional legal causes of action. And of course, your competitor is going to be pissed off.
That's fascinating. Well, Linsey, we could keep talking to you forever. This has been such a good conversation, and I feel like we got to let you go because you've been giving us so much of your time. But I do want to have you on again just to have like deeper discussions, and I think maybe this will also be like a launching pad for other questions. Simon, take us away.
From tangents to tactics.
It's mostly marketing.